Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Fine Time. Yep, it's your boy Dre, as if you didn't know already. And I'm here with someone I haven't potted? Is that a verb? Potted? Before. His name is Trey.
Oh, howdy. Yeah, my name is Trey. Deal with it.
His name is Trey. Dre and Trey. Motherfuckers.
Yeah. I feel like to get immediately into like some inside baseball talk here, you titled the sheets for this episode Dre Silk and Trey Sonic, and I feel like that's very well appreciated. You know,
Yeah, we should definitely. I mean, look. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Look, we can't be the real Silk Sonic, but you know, we can pretend. I can definitely pretend.
Look, I'm glad that they're around because it saves me from. I already know what I gotta get my mama for her birthday. She's big Bruno Mars head, so she will be very, very happy if she
I thought you were gonna say a
Silk Sonic CD.
I thought you were going to say like a Silk Sonic cassette or something like that.
Oh, yeah. A vinyl, which she does not have a vinyl player, so it would be useless.
Yep.
Cool.
Hang it on your wall like a hipster. Anyway, as the title implies, we're here to talk about Castlevania Advance Collection because goddamn. Good night, everybody.
Yep.
No, just what a collection, man. When the Game Boy Advance came out, I was like 19. So it was basically, I mean, I could say I was a grown man, even though I'm pretty sure I didn't act like one. But yeah, like technically an adult, right? So like I have a different experience. You were still a younger lad. So like I'm honestly much more interested in how you like, were you like a Nintendo Power kid? Like, did you like even keep up with these or know, like, what was your experience from afar? I want to know.
I'm gonna be honest. This is the part that I've been trying to like explore about myself. That like how I felt about video games between say age 8. That'd be about your 1997, 1998 or so, and like I don't know 15, because I most certainly knew I knew of Castlevania period. Although I think the only way I knew was the weirdest of circumstances. I played Simon's Quest at like a cousin's house, like when I was like 10. It's so long after the NES and what have you. Right. And then like that's gonna be the weirdest thing was I was all in on the Nintendo 64 and was so like, look, I was gonna try desperately, even if it was not actually a good game, to talk myself into being like, well, we got Donkey Kong 64, I'm really gonna play this and I'm really gonna have fun. And then eventually after a while it's like I am not having fun. I don't really want to do this 2-life Donkey Kong arcade challenge that somehow makes Donkey Kong like 10 times harder than the actual arcade version of Donkey Kong, just so I can beat this game.
I've never played it. I always heard this is a thing, but like, you know. But yeah, that's interesting. So your entry point is N64. I actually didn't know that. But to that end, so like, were you not aware of like Castlevania like 64? I don't even actually know what the actual name is. We all just call it Castlevania 64, but
they have the two of them, although oddly enough that was one where I followed that from afar. I feel like I just knew Castlevania more as just like that's a series that some people play. I can't really say that like it's a weird way to say it, like, because I was way more into either in 99 it probably would have been like the wrestling video games, the Rare 3 that came out basically within that 6-month period of, you know, Jet Force Gemini, Donkey Kong, and Perfect Dark. One of those is good. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Oh,
one of them
let's leave that a mystery. Let the people wonder. But no, I just like it's weird. So basically, to you, like this is like basically ease. Like it's a thing I heard of, right? But I never actually played it.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's just weird to say that about Castlevania. But obviously, I'm from a different time, so you know.
Yeah. Well, I to move this on, I guess a little bit more to where I always had like weird entry points. I feel like in consoles in general, I owned like at some point all three of the generation of the GameCube, Xbox, and PS2, and we got the Game Boy Advance as a hand-me-down, and this is where I feel like I'm just going to show you how I just do not know how I did not end up playing these games, because it would just be like, oh yeah, I hear Circle of the Moon is one of the best games on the Game Boy Advance. Okay, then I kind of just didn't think about it. Anyway. I don't know. And then, or like, I think this is going to be a weird one. Circle of the Moon, in comparison to like, wasn't like one of the other launch titles of that GBA going to be like Super Mario Advance? So it's like,
yeah, there's that. Like I think Mario Kart Super Circuit was like at the end of summer. I remember, so it was like a few months on, like in that launch window, I guess.
Yeah, so this is one thing I guess we could talk about later when we're talking about like how successful or not these games were in the traditional like sales sense. To whereas it seems like a lot of people knew of Circle of the Moon, and then it just didn't kind of. I don't really have a good explanation as to why I didn't end up playing.
It's weird.
These games.
I only say this because like. I only say this because you're such a Konami head now. So it's like, I mean, I know that came later in life. I'm just saying that, like, you know what I mean? It's interesting just looking back that way, I guess, for you, because we talk a lot of Konami.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I also think that, like, for better or worse, there was a period of time where Konami was actually pretty good about their history. And that... I mean, that aspect still kind of is there. There's a reason why we got this collection.
Only if M2 like forces them to, basically. I mean, like, yeah. I feel like none of this stuff, this collection is made by M2, of course, if anyone doesn't know. I feel like all of this stuff happens because M2 comes to Konami and says, hey, you know what I mean? I really don't think Konami approaches them on anything. I really don't think so.
Yeah, it's such a weird opposite to like a Capcom, where Capcom, they will love to put up, here are all these games that we made. You want to buy them again? Do you want to play Vulgus again? Sure.
Oh yeah. Pirate Ship Higemaru? Yes, please.
Oh yeah. But yeah, that's kind of a nice way of saying that I was a filthy casual who did not experience these games at the time, and thus, once this collection was teased, announced, all that, I was immediately like, okay, well, this is probably the best chance I've got.
Oh yeah, this is, I mean, and it's pretty ultimate. Basically, for me, it's pretty simple. Like, I'm debating whether to tell a story on this podcast that I should tell. You know what? Fuck it, I'll tell it. So, okay, so my dad. My parents divorced early, right? So when I hang out with my dad, he was like a weirdo and sometimes a druggie. So sometimes he'd bring me to his buddy's house and like they would smoke weed, right? But he had an NES like in the back room, and like I could play as much. He had like two games. He had like Castlevania and like Blades of Steel. I could play them.
That's a weird Konami combination.
Yeah, I could play them as much as I wanted, as long as I didn't tell Mom that he smoked weed, right? Bro, I sat there and played Castlevania for like hours. That's how I mastered that game. I actually never had it at home, but whenever I went over there, I'm like, bitch, it's Castlevania time. He also had like really inappropriate like posters on the wall. Like one of them was like like the typical like lady on the car. You know, this is like the late 80s, of course. So you'd see that stuff. And then like the caption said, "Let me tighten your nuts." I had no idea what that meant at all.
Of course.
I had no clue.
I genuinely thought that this was going to like that when you said inappropriate posters, it was just like, oh, is this just going to be like a college kid's like dorm room? And it's like, oh, he's got the Scarface poster and the Pink Floyd poster of all the butts.
Oh, no. I mean, she wasn't naked, right? I mean, it wasn't like completely inappropriate. At the same time, I was anyway. So whenever I think of that's how I played a lot of the original Castlevania. The other ones, I think 2, I played at a friend's house. 3 and Super Castlevania 4, I honestly never really gave a shot until Wii Virtual Console. I may have ROM Super Castlevania 4 sometime in like the early 2000s, but other than that, I just wasn't interested. I don't know why in my like kid brain I thought of it this way, but like at the time, like the 2 big like action games at the SNES, like early SNES life, was Super Castlevania 4 and Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Guess which one I picked? Because that's, I was a Capcom freak, right? So I never really paid Super Castlevania 4 any mind, and I never knew anyone who had it, so I just never played it. Until Wii Virtual Console, really. And, that game's all right, but that's another story. But yeah, my Castlevania history is pretty spotty, too, until Circle of the Moon kind of blew my socks off, and I was like, yo, I'm playing them all. Little did I know we'd get a string of 6, right? But
yeah, well, for most of them, Iga was willing to get that team together, pump them out real quick, get them going for good and for bad, as we will soon determine.
Oh yeah, but let's start with the good, because like Circle of the Moon, it's just one of those games for me that I'll never forget playing through. And I don't usually have those kind of memories. Usually I'll think like, oh, I really enjoyed that game. I don't remember like when I played it, maybe because the Game Boy Advance was pretty new at this time still or whatever, but like, man, I sat under a hot ass lamp in my room because, that thing wasn't backlit. And like, I went through an entire like 8-pack of double A's. Just, I mean, it's so foreign to even think of using like literal batteries in the game system now, right? But that's what I did playing that game, like just non-stop. I don't remember how long it took me to beat, but I devoured that game. It was exactly what I wanted. One people. Let's try that again. One thing people don't really talk about enough when it comes to Symphony of the Night is what a departure it is visually, artistically from like previous Castlevania games. I feel like that never gets talked about. When I first played Symphony of the Night, among other things, that's among other reasons why I didn't like it, but I was like, this doesn't even look like Castlevania to me. Do you understand what I mean? Like, nobody really says that, but
you can definitely tell that a Symphony of the Night, I get that it seems like they're trying to play more to a certain type of gothic look that's just not what Castlevania was before. Like the Castlevania I think of is definitely way more of the like they always say it's like the little in joke at the end of Vania 1's credits that you see, like, the fake names of like it's a Boris Karloff joke, Christopher Lee, like those old Universal monster movies. Whereas this one feels like, Symphony has more of like a interview with the vampire kind of thing. I'm not really sure if that's a way to say that, but
maybe like Dracula 92, a movie I love.
Maybe so. Oh yeah, Bram Stoker's Dracula, and I get why they did that, and certainly why Iga himself would go back more towards that style in both later Vanias and in Bloodstained. But yeah, it is totally just like a foreign deal. I mind you, I also have to admit that like I've never really felt like I needed to play Symphony all that bad.
Yeah. I remember renting it, me and my friend, at like kind of basically when it came out, like whenever, like late 97, fall 90-ish 7. And like, I don't know. He seemed to be into it. I was really disappointed. Mainly because like it was really easy at first. So I was like, yo, this doesn't even feel like Castlevania. It doesn't look like Castlevania. For the most part, it goes for like a different kind of music band, something I would appreciate later. But at the time, I was like, you know what I mean? So I think in that respect, Circle really hit the spot because it's like, yo, this is what I wanted all along. It wasn't the fact that it was like an action adventure game versus like a level by level affair. It was just the fact that it felt like Castlevania again in all those respects with that new shell that Symphony provided that I guess people liked. I didn't know at the time because obviously all the love for that game is retroactive, but I
Right.
man, I just like Halloween on steroids, like you were saying, like with the names at the end of the original Castlevania, the funny jokes and stuff, like that's Castlevania to me. Like not like I don't know, pretty glittery chandeliers and harpsichord. I guess it's not really wasn't really for me.
Yeah. I mean, to its credit, they do like in the later games. I feel like they do at least play with it to where it's like, okay, this is kind of funny and it's kind of weird, but at the same time, there's going to be nothing, and I mean nothing, that is so shocking and funny to me as the moment when I enter a room and circle the moon, and this skeleton runs after me, and they call him Skeleton Athlete. It's just like, okay, okay, right on.
That is incredible. See, like that's the thing. Symphony has a couple of goofy things like that too, but they don't really. The atmosphere doesn't really provide for it, so it just feels out of place. And Circle, it's like, yes, Skeleton Athlete. That is exactly what I came here for. That's the best. That's the best like enemy in any of these games, right? Skeleton Athlete. There's just nothing better than that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I was also going to say, though... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, you would think that the skeletons would be, like... Okay, like the Charge and Chucks, they do, like, different sports, some throw baseball, some kick football. The Skeleton Athlete just kind of runs at you. I mean, I'm not saying that he should have, like, javelin throw and, like, a bunch of stuff. At the same time, throw a little track and field in there, Konami.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there are we to infer that in this depiction of Castlevania that all the athletes are the dead bones of the performers from the track and field series?
We should ROM hack Track and Field '88 and just add Skeleton Athlete instead of like people.
Oh yeah. Or ROM hack Circle the Moon just to have the 8-bit Chariots of Fire thing pop up when you're in the room.
That's got to be public domain, right? That song can't be copyrighted.
I mean, surely it isn't, but it might be. I don't know. Surely you would think it isn't because it's so ubiquitous and it's everywhere and you hear it everywhere. But Vangelis may have a more expensive. May have a good copyright lawyer on his side. I don't know.
I mean, I was like 30-something years old before I knew that Happy Birthday to You is copyrighted. I had no fucking clue. So
didn't they technically loosen that copyright somewhat though over the year?
Because they were pretty litigious for a while. I feel like
absolutely, but I feel like more and more modern works you see, like on television, what have you, are a little bit more willing to do the Happy Birthday to You song just because it might be something to do with that. I could be making this all up. This could be a Mandela effect thing where it's like, oh yeah, you couldn't say Happy Birthday until like 2017, and then all of a sudden everything happened.
Trey's Tall Tales, Happy Birthday to You. But yeah, man, I love this game. It's hard. It's really hard to say anything bad about it. Like, I love that. You know what I really love about it the most that I think about when I just think about that game in general? I love that the difficulty is like perfect because it really hits that point of like, okay, am I gonna, you're low on health. When you get to that next save room, it is a big sigh of relief. You are so relieved. It is like, oh my god, I fucking made it. I can't believe it. Right?
Yeah.
I never felt that way when I played Symphony.
Right. I tried like that is genuinely one of those things where I tried on purpose. Obviously, these versions have like a rewind functionality, which
Mm-hmm.
is genuinely very useful if you're actually trying to 100% these games.
Oh yeah.
Since since they kind of got they kind of got gotcha before gotcha happens. So in this game too with the card
Yep.
system, but I did try to more experience where it's like, okay, I got like one bit of health. I hope I can get to the save room because I just felt like that is a more authentic experience, and I don't mind being challenged in a game if it feels like the game isn't just doing this just to fuck with me. That
Oh
like
yeah.
that it actually is giving me like a balance of it. I will admit, towards the very end of the game, I do feel like some of the bosses at times I could feel like could be a bit tedious, but only because I feel like by the end of the game I may have gotten a little complacent about some stuff. I
Well,
don't want to tell
let's
you. I
talk
don't
about
want
that. Let's talk about
to.
that actually, because like
Mm-hmm,
we kind of differ on this on Drac, I guess in general in
mm-hmm.
Circle of the Moon. I think it's really cool. You were just kind of like, eh. So why don't you tell me why you didn't like it so much, and then I will browbeat you into my opinion.
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, I don't mind. That's such a weird thing to think about with the Castlevania games in general is how they approach the Dracula fight, because in every single entry it feels like that very first game's Dracula fight, at times it would feel like is insanely difficult, and then you find out the one specific thing you're supposed to do, and then it turns insanely easy. Like, and then it feels like every single game, sometimes they would course correct it to where it's like, okay, we can't make this too difficult. People actually want to finish this game, or vice versa. I feel like when they get to that point in Circle, I am willing to admit I easily could be just not having the right loadout or anything like that, because loadout is genuinely very important in this game.
Oh
That
yeah.
like it is the type of thing that if you don't have the right stuff for it, and also they are also assuming this in a world with no rewind, then yeah, you're gonna get your ass kicked and you're gonna get
Yeah.
killed. Um, but I do feel like that last battle, if you want to go into specifics,
Yeah.
the fact that it is when you get to that last part where Dracula's just running at you like 3 or 4 times, and you got to jump up the 3 or 4 times, then you kind of got to crawl around and find specifically where the bats are and keep whipping the bats. I feel like I feel like if I'm doing that like 100 times and I know what the trick is, sometimes I'm like, I almost want to be like, look, I'm not a smart person here, but I kind of want this to be over because I feel like this is just repeating itself here. I don't
I
really want to just keep repeating itself over and over. But
I
I
totally
also
get
get
what you mean. I didn't think this was bad. I think though probably I was higher level than you. I think that made a difference because, like, I'm not saying I beat Dracula quickly, but I definitely didn't go through. It definitely didn't feel repetitious. Like, if I had to do that
it.
a whole bunch of times, then yeah, I might feel the same way as you. But I don't know. Once you get down the pattern of jumping, like super duper jumping over his dash attack,
I
it's
will
not really
say,
that annoying. But then there are
yeah,
times where the bat doesn't really appear right in like in a way that's like very good at the but like overall I don't know. I didn't really think it was too much of an annoyance, but I feel like maybe if you were just a couple levels higher, you may not
but
necessarily feel that way.
that could easily be the case. And I will admit, by the time you get to the end of that game and you get the super crazy jump that just keeps going, jumping, just
It's
being
so
just
good.
crazy,
It's
it is
just
really
incredible.
it is that is easily the best one they do of all three of those games,
Yeah.
easily. There's, do they even have one in Aria? I mean, they kind of do, don't they?
I
But not in the same way.
not in the same way. Not in the
Yeah,
same way. Harmony has it, but they add like a command to it for some reason,
and
like
it's
it's a
bad.
fucking fighting game, and then
It's
it sucks.
yeah, it's bad. That one, it's bad. Plus, like the way you do it in Circle, it kind of almost is like a weird like infinite jump, and I kind of
Yeah.
like that aspect of just bouncing it around, whereas in Harmony it's just like you better do this, and okay, you're only getting this high, so good luck. All right, have fun with your slow moving himbo.
Slow moving himbo. That is my new Instagram account. Slow moving himbo. That is definitely, that's gonna get me 100K followers, like easy.
That's probably already there. Sure. I feel like this is gonna like, we're obviously not going to talk about like Harmony just yet, because I know there's definitely a few things we can definitely talk about from Circle, but I did tell a friend that like that the biggest thing that I've just was so annoyed by in Harmony is the fact that like that Juice Run animation basically makes them look like, you know those Mickey Mouse games on the Sega Genesis. Like that run animation is just like oh, he's floating around doing stuff, like
he's just slipping and sliding.
Yeah, it's never like, in comparison to how like Nathan runs, which I know a few people will be like, yeah, but you gotta tap the button to make him go faster. Like, I never had a problem with that in this game. I never felt that. It's not that big a deal to me.
I want to, like, before we get to the cards, which we'll do real quick, I want to say that another thing I really enjoy about Circle is that it rewards your exploration at every turn. So even if you get lost, quote unquote, around pretty much every dead end is like an MP up, a HP up, a whatever up, right? Like, you will always upgrade your character by exploring. That is excellent, because you would think like that's a prerequisite of the genre. Oh no, because the next game didn't really do that. So but the Circle is so smartly planned in that way, where every corner you look around, you're going to get something for exploring it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is one thing that I definitely in our chats expressed a lot more frustration with in the case of Harmony versus Circle. Now, and I don't want to just simply make this a discussion between like comparing Circle of the Moon to Harmony of Dissonance, but
how can we
there
not,
is well, also they kind of put it on themselves to that sort of thing with how quite famously Koji Igarashi, that Harmony is the first Castlevania he'd worked on basically since Symphony of the Night. I mean, I know he has like he was doing like consulting work, and I know technically he's got A credits in Circle, but not as like the main scenario writer or director or producer or anything like that. So I don't know when you want to specifically talk about this, but the fact that
we can't. No, go on. It's perfect now. Let's do it.
The fact that like Igarashi uncannoned like Circle after all of this happened, and then we saw how Harmony turns out very, very quickly. Like at best, that is extremely petty, and at worst, it's just outright saying, okay, this B team at Konami, I believe this was Konami Computer Entertainment Kobe that did this particular one.
Yeah,
they did Castlevania 64, the Legacy of Darkness, which I guess corrected a lot of the stuff from Castlevania 64, and then Circle of the Moon. And at that point, especially something like Circle, was keeping the franchise more or less afloat. I don't know if anybody has like any fondness for the 64 version, but certainly Circle of the Moon at that time, like the one thing I can say I did know from the outside was that in that 2001 launch period of the Game Boy Advance, Circle of the Moon is very highly regarded at that point. Mm-hmm. Same with Golden Sun, and the titles that everybody remembers specifically from that first year. Even Super Mario Advance, even though I think I was a lame 14-year-old's like, well, that's just Mario 2 on a damn card. I don't want to play that. Well, I don't know about Mario 2. And then now, like 32-year-old me is gonna be like, it's Mario 2 on a damn card. It's awesome. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. You know what I didn't know for a long time, like until I watched like YouTube videos of like featuring like basically like younger people. I didn't realize a lot of people that's how they first played classic Mario's, those Mario Advance games. I had no idea. Like, because I was
Yeah,
thinking, like, at the very worst, it might be like Super Mario All Stars. No, those Super Mario Advance games was their Super Mario All Stars. Like, if you're young enough and at the right age, like that's it for you. Like, it's weird for me to think about it that way. I guess.
I kind of I almost kind of want to see them play like the actual NES one and be like, oh wow, the screen's good.
Yeah, without
See?
screen crunch.
I can actually see what the background is. This is neat.
But no, I agree with you. I felt that was extremely petty, and honestly, at the time, it was really resentful. It made me resentful towards Harmony before it even came out. I don't know. It felt like Circle became like this whipping boy. It was like, there's nothing wrong with this fucking game. It's awesome, right? But it wasn't his. And I'm not even saying Ig was wrong to do that. I understand why he wanted to do that because he had future plans going forward from Harmony. I get it. Okay, I'm not even saying he shouldn't have. It just felt wrong.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't obviously an unprecedented thing for a company like Konami. I imagine they don't want anybody to remember like the 15 Contra games that aren't, the good ones, we'll say, or something like that, or or Metal Gear, or Metal Gear Survive, we'll say. Metal Gear Survive.
Anyway, so let's talk about the cards real quick, because the card system in Circle real fast before we move on, because I think it's worth mentioning. This sort of thing is typically like can seem fairly gimmicky, but it's not. Like, you can really do a whole lot of cool stuff. I kind of stuck to like the big overhead swords, like the Rose one, or the like that give you those like big, I don't know what you want to call it, Claymore or whatever the fuck, right? But I don't know. You were a fan of like some of the more elemental stuff, right?
Yeah, I will say it probably wasn't great for my actual play style towards the end of the game, but the specific card combination that gives you like a poison cloud, which cracked me up the first time I dealt with it. When you get through go back through like the early areas again, it's just like, oh, I just stood there and everybody died.
It's really busted. It's so fucking busted. It's like it's. I remember using this a lot in my original playthrough, like goddamn 20 years ago. But like, it's just. I don't think I used it too much. I think I found that card. I couldn't find what card combination. By the way, M2 is like really good about that kind of stuff. That like if you pause and look at the menus, you'll find all the card combinations. They just tell you what they do, which is excellent. It takes all the guesswork out, which is fine. Look, I mean, like sometimes, like if you want to play around with the cards and find out what each one does, fine. But they're not always immediately obvious. Like that one that heals you, like if you stand still, that's not always something you're gonna necessarily know. Right? So...
Right. Yeah, there were definitely a few of them where I feel like I need to take somewhat better advantage of that, because every single time that... There were quite a few where I was just kind of staring and I'd do the power thing and it's just like, why isn't anything happening? I'm like, and I know it's got to be something like that where it's like, okay, it's probably something like this helps your heart.
This helps your heart. It gives you a pacemaker.
This gives you a pacemaker. This Nathan Graves, our erstwhile hero, despite being probably a young man, he's got.
Did you know that Nathan Graves, he was born without a heart? Instead, it was a third foot, so they had to put a pig's heart in there. Now he uses the cards.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I really enjoy this system. It's not, I guess, they're not too hard to find. I mean, like, I didn't really try to find them all either. I think when I initially played the game, I did. But, like, you don't really have to. Whatever you get along your way, you can just kind of use and have fun with. If you want to, like, seek them out, you can do that as well. But
they do a very good job, specifically that for... Definitely with percentage drops or whatever, we have like a rewind feature where quite honestly, that saves you a lot of grinding on that stuff.
Why the hell didn't I do that?
I mean,
Especially in Aria.
yeah, I was gonna say that I didn't really occupy it that much. I didn't really try doing that much either, but because I wasn't really aiming to do that. But I did feel like if I wanted to go back through, one thing I think we could bring up that's pretty notable is that every single one of these games has like a new game plus that's
Mm-hmm.
drastically changes the game. Sometimes they're just like goofy novelties, but like I did like going back through Circle in magician mode where the thing is like, okay, you've got all this, you've got all the cards, you can do whatever you want with them, but if you screw around and you get hit a couple times, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
die because you don't have enough health. Like I do genuine I like how Circle
Circle
especially
is
did
really good
this.
at it.
Yeah, they're like they have there's like isn't there like two other like crazy modes where it's like, okay, now this one, like, because then there's one that does the exact opposite where it's like, okay, you don't get any cards, but you're strong to start and you're gonna have to figure out how to do this strictly with your whip and your wiles, basically.
There's a lot of them. They're really
Yeah.
fun. I played a lot of typically like I'm not typically a new game plus person in these games, like whether it's these three or any of the others. Like I don't really the only one I really fucked with was the one in Dawn of Sorrow where you could be Julius, Yoko, and Alucard like all at once. Like that was fun
Ooh.
for some
Yeah.
reason. But like, yeah, even Albus mode and in Order of Ecclesia, I just never really end up doing these. I guess whether it's fine, I just never really fuck with
Yeah.
them. But I think it's about time to shit on Harmony, which we will do. Yes, get that
Yeah.
asshole open. Get ready to shit on Harmony
Oh boy.
after this. All right, I feel refreshed just in time enough to defecate on. Okay, look, I haven't played the Castlevania 64s, right? I haven't played a couple other games.
Yeah.
I can't imagine those games on the N64 wouldn't have more to offer me than Harmony does. Harmony is just top to bottom bad, like every aspect, because like it has what's its actual redeeming feature? I mean, like I dare anyone to say it.
I will go through like the very few features that I did enjoy. I might as well go ahead and do that. Uh, there is a cool sky effect in one of the levels that is really neat, really cool to look at, and I'm like, that's neat that they got that on a dang GBA.
That
That's
was neat,
almost Mode
actually.
70.
That
That's
is
pretty
neat.
cool. Although hilariously, they do the same exact sky effect in Aria, and somehow it also looks better in that game too, but it also
Because
looks more atmospheric. And I'm like, okay, but there's that. Uh, I'm softer on a couple of the songs I think than you are, as far as like I am
let me
okay
let
with
me
the main theme.
let me say. Okay, you mean like the
Successor of
first
Fate.
song you hear, huh?
Successor of Fate.
I don't know the names.
Yeah, that's it.
I
No, that's it. That's the
okay,
one.
but like, I mean, I guess it's okay, but they like did their best to make it sound like shit. You ever hear a record that's like produced so shittily, but the songs are written so well, where it's like it matters, but it's like, okay, this really shines through that shitty production. That's kind of how I feel. I feel like I'm making a concession by even saying that it's good.
Right. I can totally understand that just because the way Harmony did it was so bad. Is that if you have to do like a remix version that outright just notes, okay, we took out all the like horrible sounding samples and this kind of sounds listenable. And it's like, yeah, well then why didn't they do that in the game? That's kind of the problem here is that
Well, I
the instruments sound so bad, and I will tell you this from dumb YouTube compilations I look at like all the time. there are a lot of systems that can make some of the best Castlevania music sound awful to such an extent. The Commodore 64 version of Castlevania.
That exists?
Yes.
Oh no.
And
Well, see, like I usually like some C64 music sometimes. Sometimes it's kind of bumping, right? But then, like, I feel like the game has to be for that system, though, because
right.
like if you convert something, then it's not good.
Castlevania music translates really well to the MSX version. Still sound pretty
Oh
solid.
my god, Konami's MSX music is fucking incredible. Oh
Yes.
my god. Like I mean, I try not to look at games on that system because the lack of scrolling drives me insane. I don't know how people dealt with it for
Right.
so like almost to the 90s, but like Jesus Christ, man. I mean, you can even look up like the most obscure shit like from Konami on MSX, which they've made a shit ton of MSX games, and they are
Mm-hmm.
just you can't go wrong. They're all jamming.
Yeah, like it works well with like an MSX but like something like, another rare one, the MS DOS version of Castlevania where it's just like boop, 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 like it's just beeps in a
But
pattern.
but see, that's it
And
though. That's what Harmony does. It's like it's using the old Game Boy chip, which is still in the Game Boy Advance, to produce a majority of the sound, which is like not a bad thing. I think the two Castlevania Game Boy games,
the
it comes to
beginning of
music.
Castlevania the Adventure
Yeah,
sounds awesome. And like even when you deal with like the limitations that game in particular does, you still feel like a badass going through that very first level.
yeah,
Like
but like
and then
but like
everything
Harmony
general.
just makes you feel it every it the game sucks also, so
Right.
it's like drab music on top of a really drab game. It makes for like genuinely like really painful experience. The two combine on the spiritual sexual level to provide you like this just overall feeling of nasty.
Yeah. And the craziest thing about the whole thing about that whole experience is you would think that I don't know what the critical reception of the Game Boy games were at the time, but I do know that certainly now Castlevania the Adventure is not very well regarded necessarily. What
I love
through
it, but I understand.
or more to this conversation, Castlevania Legends is definitely not well regarded at all. And but Harmony was definitely at the time very well regarded. Some people think it's better than Circle, and
That doesn't make
in
any sense.
every
It drove me
single
crazy.
time.
I felt like I was losing my mind. I'm telling you, at the time, I was like, what happened here? What happened? And that's
Like,
really what I want to explore here. We know the game is bad, right? But
yeah,
we should really, what happened to everybody? Was it the obvious Symphony of the Night pandering? Because, like, to me, it doesn't really feel like that game. The
not really.
jumping feels bad. You notice like if you don't hold down the jump button to get a full jump, it feels like you just hit your head on an invisible like ceiling and you just immediately like drop. The whipping feels bad. They even fucked up that because it's like you can't like when you whip in midair and you try to turn or something, it's like not tight at all because like we said, he has like wascally wabbit legs. So
Yeah.
like I don't understand why was this okay? Like, surely, I mean, I guess they just didn't play Circle. I guess, honestly, I think it's just like the Emperor's wearing no clothes, right? Like, everyone just is saying what they think they should be saying about Castlevania and not, like, actually giving it any thought. Because I feel like that happens a lot, but.
And I definitely don't disagree on that one. And also, I greatly imagine I know this is going to shock you, but there were hype cycles back then too.
Oh!
Shockingly,
Wow!
we're ridiculous. That ridiculous, like, there's a reason. Like, look, we didn't all wake up one day and suddenly go like, "Well, Final Fantasy VII is the best game that I've ever played." So
Nope.
that's that.
Groupthink happens.
To where absolutely and we're talking about a system that at that point, this is when does Harmony come out? Like early 2002, mid 2002, somewhere around there. Just the first
Harmony
year
was like
of the Game Boy?
September. It was like a year after.
September. Okay,
Yeah.
but even then, we're still talking about a system to where the top novelties on that game system are, admittedly, some pretty cool RPGs, Circle, and Mario 2 in your pocket. But it was genuinely, I guess in a lot of people's eyes, it was kind of a novelty to be like, well, dang, this is gonna be like a Symphony of the Night level experience in my damn pocket. Even if the last game was a better reflection of that, but it wasn't made by the Symphony of the Night guy, so it's kind of what the world.
I have no proof of this anymore, but I feel like at the time, and this will make sense when I say it, I feel like at the time it was kind of known that Aria was in the works first, and Harmony was just kind of like thrown together, and it came out first, and then Aria got that extra development time, as we can clearly tell, right. And was like came out the in 2003. I feel like that was a known fact, but when I scoured information for this pod, I couldn't find that. Like, did you ever remember hearing about that? But like, whether you have or not, I mean, it makes sense when we play them all back to back, right?
I wish I could remember her name right off the top of my head, but the main composer lady that did like symphony stuff. Yes, that she only has like maybe 2 songs in Harmony, but way more in Aria's soundtrack. And of course, in Aria's soundtrack, they sound like way better and like honestly, top of its class.
Yes.
When it gets to that point, to where it was very obvious that if someone that was that important to why Symphony's music is so damn good, and what have you, that if she's working mainly on, I mean, call a spade a spade, the one that's actually memorable and good, then shockingly, that's probably going to be
yeah.
I
just remember that being like, I don't want to say common knowledge, but like I couldn't find any proof of this. Like, I don't know. I feel like that was known at some point. Things get lost to time or whatever. I'm saying that as if I'm like 1,000 years old, but like, I feel like that was a thing. But anyway, I think it's time to talk about our man, Juiced Belmont. Just.
I think that's the other thing that gets kind of like, that's
Juiced or Just.
No, I don't care about it.
Juiced or Just? You have to have an opinion, Trey.
I'll probably call him Juiced.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't really know, but I do feel like that's another aspect that makes the whole uncanon of Circle so weird is like and annoying is that Circle bothers to make like, oh, this guy is like a friend of the vampire hunters, and they have like this whole tribe that somehow is different from the Belmonts, and like it's just this weird sort of the idea that this world is more than just, oh, it's only these Belmonts, and only these Belmonts with the power of the Belmonts can stop the thing. And then, you have your John Morrises and what have you bouncing around occasionally.
And a few Belmonts.
Yeah. And so to immediately go, well, I don't care about any of the stuff you wrote. Well, we're going to have another Belmont, and he's going to be Christopher, actually, no. He's lamer than Christopher, because at least Christopher was very like
everybody. Have you seen him? This guy sucks.
Beautiful white hair. Just all that white hair, not even like in like a good, nice, pretty pattern like our boy Soma.
No, Soma's beautiful. Soma is way more beautiful. That's the thing about this. Soma came out a year later and is like, no, I'm prettier than Juiced Belmont, and I don't have to glick furniture to prove it. Like yep. Soma is just like, man, look at the cover of Aria. I'm sorry, that is a pretty man. I don't care what your sexuality is, your preferences. Soma is a beautiful man. I don't mind saying it.
Yeah. I do like bringing up the furniture thing, because you think about like going through like your 10th boss fights of finding something there, and then finding some random hole of something and being like, oh, it's a chair. Cool.
Why did I know you
Great.
were going to say chair?
Just
You could have picked any piece of furniture. You said, I knew
oh
you were going to go
oh
chair
it's
for some reason.
it's a emblazoned chandelier. What a beautiful night to have
Great. I
occurred.
beat up bosses. And the bosses suck in Harmony because they just kind of stand there and
Oh
just like,
yeah.
they're so bad.
Oh my
You
goodness.
literally, I put up a video on Twitter of this. You literally just stand there and whip and then it's dead. It
Pretty
doesn't
much.
do
Yep.
anything to you.
Pretty much. Yep.
Yeah.
It's the type of game that immediately makes you think, oh wow, that was wasteful. I have wasted my time.
I don't know another chance in another pod when I'm ever going to get to say this, so I'm going to say it now. The apropos of nothing, there is a I don't know if you ever played the PSP Dracula X Chronicles. Did you ever?
I
Okay,
haven't, but it is on my list of I'm going to eventually play it because I've committed myself to this life of being like, I guess I'm just going to play all these now. So, yep, it's
yeah.
worth doing.
There is in the instruction manual for that game. In North America, they have a description of Alucard, speaking of pretty men, that has just never left my head, and I would like to read it out loud right now to the audience. Alucard, born of the union between Count Dracula and a human, his androgyne beauty and delicate build belie tremendous physical prowess and a mastery of the dark arts. Though a melancholy and taciturn youth, he is intelligent and level-headed.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever wrote that at Konami, I mean, A plus. A fucking plus. When I read that,
Really,
I was like, you got this is excellent. This is excellent.
really hope that was old Jeremy Blastine there.
Taciturn. I don't know. Like he just really went to the thesaurus. You know what I mean? Androgyne beauty. I love it. It's excellent. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense, right? I really, really, really do feel like it's just shitty groupthink. And we'll talk a little more about groupthink later too. But like, I just, at all turns, at every way we examine harmony and dissonance, I do not understand why people thought this game was good. I'm pretty sure they never thought so, and they just said it because they felt like they had to.
But hey, it's got two castles that are basically exactly the same, and except one of them's got like a filter on it.
I dare you to tell me if you're in Castle A or Castle B by just looking. I dare.
I never could.
I dare.
I never could figure it out. Like I think I've had to hit like the pause screen like 15 or 20 times, like the map screen.
Oh yeah,
and then immediately went, oh right, I guess I am in B.
I'm not saying it has to be as drastic as like a light world and a dark world, like a Link to the Past or Metroid Prime 2 or something like that. But you should be able to tell which one you're in. Like,
yeah,
come on, man.
And it definitely obviously we know to immediately make the Symphony of Night Illusions that this is clearly their effort to try to do the upside down castle thing again. That it's like extremely obvious that is what they're going for is, oh, you thought this was it, and then this was that one. But even that had like a logic to it that made some sense, and not just, oh, this one's got water, I think. And then you've like, okay, well, how do I get the water out? And it's like, you go around like almost all of the castle just to do that.
You will never know which part of the castle you're in because like it seems like the themes change from room to room so drastically that it almost feels like a random room generator sometimes. Like nothing feels connected.
They made their own randomizer. Like, but it's shipped, and that's probably not a good thing to do.
No,
if you
probably.
do a randomizer.
Do you like how like halfway through the game it's like, oh, I was in another castle along? It's like, well, I used a warp gate and it took me to like a different map. So I mean, I kind of feel like yes, that was a thing, but and then I don't understand why they kind of met in the middle. Does that mean like they're merging? I don't know. Maybe I skipped some piece of dialogue that like, oh, speaking of dialogue, the fucking opening crawl where it's like Juiced and his friend blah 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 cared about this girl very very much, and I'm like, bro, they're both fucking her. Like, why did you even say it that way?
I mean, yeah, that is exactly what the inference is there, and it's like, and that's also another thing that like irritated me is, I didn't mind that like Circle Story is very basic by the points. You do the things that you need to do. Your buddy is going to get jealous of you and turn on you, and then you fight Dracula. And game's over.
Mm-hmm.
But Harmony, you meet your friend. He gets jealous of you. He'll turn on you at some point. You have to fight him, and then I don't know if you get all the stupid parts that doesn't make any sense. Why
Oh
you need
yeah,
them all, and they're all out of the freaking way, and real pointless to get to. Then maybe you can fight Dracula at the end and then get the good ending, or you could just kill your bud and be done with it.
it's so weird. You got to find you go find the toenail of Dracula and the gallbladder and the foreskin of Dracula and like all this fucking. It's like, can we I get it. They want you to explore the castle to find these doodads, but some of them you'll never remember that you couldn't. I dare you to find them without a guy. I mean, I guess you could if you wanted to scour every square inch of those two boring castles if you wanted to.
I feel like that's the other annoying thing about the game is in Circle. If sure, I had to scour every inch of the castle to find some stuff, but I always felt like it was very like you mentioned earlier. It was relatively okay, I haven't went to this one. What's there? Okay, I get 20 points. Great. Sometimes I felt like I was trying to explore a thing where I'm like, well, surely nothing will be there. I already went there 6 times,
Mm-hmm.
and then I do the 7th time, and it's like, oh, it's suddenly there now. You're like, what? Like the freaking ring or whatever the crap that you have to get in order to open up some stuff, or the water thing where it's like, oh, that's where they put the water thing, the key to the water thing. I'm like, come on.
Shruggy shoulders. One of the parts of Dracula was inside a wall in a save room. I found this by accident. I didn't even look that up. I was just dicking around. I was like, did that wall did it just? And then, yeah, I was like, did you really hide this here? How is anyone supposed to find that? Come on, man.
I mean,
even if Ecclesia has some weird shit where you got to find but that's not nearly as weird as that. That was come on.
I mean, even the best ones have do have the weird I'm not sure we'll talk about this with Arya especially, where it's I'm not sure if you were supposed to really know that you were supposed to do that without a guide, but at the same time, Arya, in the case of Arya's exploration or what have you, I would only have to ask someone once. Okay, is this what you do to beat the game? With Harmony, I literally would stare at a map, it feels 10 times and go, well, what the hell are you trying to get me to do? What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go here?
That's the problem with Harmony's maps. Sometimes, some of those, the eyeball of Dracula or whatever, is in some random spot that some hallway that you already went through 1,000 times, but you just didn't have the down, up, press A command to jump really high. But it's you already covered, lit up that part of the map, so you wouldn't ever think to go back there to look for it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's it's really unintuitive versus I almost rather they hit everything inside of a wall, because at least that would have been off the map that you already did. But this is just it's out there in plain sight, but you would never remember, especially since everything in this fucking game looks the same. So why would you even know that? I don't know, man. It's awful.
Yeah, it's one thing I can say is that sky effect. I'm just gonna keep praising that sky effect.
No,
I'm great. Oh, that's neat. That's great. It looks real nice. And then you go through boss 13 and it's oh, it's Merman, and then you kill Merman and then you don't get anything from it.
I feel like the game is straight up unfinished though, in that regard.
It probably is.
Because it's why would you have bosses that don't give you anything? It doesn't make any sense. No game does that. Even the crappiest games don't do that. Harmony does.
Yeah, I mean, at least M2, at least they get the benefit of modern technology to be you get 15 experience achievement points here. You get 15 achievement points for beating Merman and Giant Merman or whatever. And then after you whipped him 10 times and then he didn't do anything, you just killed him.
Merman XL.
Yeah. That's a game that could have used a giant skeleton athlete or something, or
oh my god, Can you imagine skeleton teen, skeleton athlete as a boss?
That'd be pretty good. Even if they let you just beat it the same way you do in like Circle, where you just hit it 2 times, it would be really. I mean, that'd be a really funny gag. Like that's the weirdest thing is every single boss battle in that game is both easy and tedious at the same time. It's
Mhm.
really impressive. It is really impressive that they managed to like if it like it'd be different if it was like, oh, you hit it a couple times and you're like, okay, they didn't account for anything here. But then you're just like, oh, I'm just whipping them 40 times and nothing's happening, and it's just not.
And they
It's not
don't do
fun.
anything to you. I'm kind of glad that they
No.
don't, because they're so tedious. Like if they were actually like hard to kill, like they actually did a lot of
Oh,
damage to you, that would be the
that would make it the
worst.
worst. Yes,
Oh, the
that
worst
would
of
make it
all
so
worlds.
bad.
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
Oh man,
But either way, I think I've run out of like various things I could
no,
do that.
we can
Although we
stop
can,
talking about Juiced.
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
just call the game now just Juiced. I
Juice
just
4.
Juiced 4. Juiced Castlevania 4. I just wanted to add on top of all this shitting on Harmony of Dissonance is that none of this pandering worked, because Harmony of Dissonance sold like shit. It sold really bad in Japan. I don't have a number, but here in North America, it sold 126,000 copies. Now, that's not like the worst thing in the world. I mean, we're talking about a different time here. We're talking about Game Boy Advance. That is not like a horrific number. At the same time, right? You would expect something that, was highly anticipated, got so much praise. It's a failure for that game just because they hyped it up so much. Oh, this is the Circle, fuck that. This is the real successor, Harmony of Dissonance, and it just fell flat on its face. Flat on
Yeah,
its face.
yeah. I've always wondered if Iga kind of had like a similar thing with Konami that's like, let's say a Yoko Taro had with like Square Enix, to where it's like we know his games aren't going to sell that well, at least until past few years. But he'll keep the budget low, so we'll just keep making these, even if it turns out like a Harmony, where it's obvious that there clearly could not have been very many resources put into it.
No. I think that is a really good point, and I think you were correct, because like that's how we got to pump them things out, even across the DS trilogy, right? Like I feel like he just kept getting to do them because they didn't cost much. He was smart about resources. They really kept it low. They didn't have to sell a whole lot. Castlevania has its dedicated fans, but it was enough to really keep it going without anyone at Konami being like, yo. But then, of course, we know after Order of Ecclesia, it just stopped dead. So, maybe they just got wise to him. Hey, what are you doing over there, Iga? The entirety of the 2000s that we weren't paying attention to you. I was just cranking out a Castlevania every year and a half. Don't mind me. Yeah, honestly, that's probably what happened.
Yeah, and also the same sense that that's probably also a lot of the reason why, unfortunately, the only times we can really relive like any Castlevania is just like coincidentally not resource intensive collections that probably, we assume, only get greenlit because M2's like, come on, you got it there.
Mhm.
We already reprogrammed all the games. You just let's put it out. Just put it out.
Oh boy, we're gonna talk music in a second. Be right back. All right. So obviously, you never talk Castlevania without talking music. Let's talk about Lists are easy, right? People get mad at lists. We don't have to rank them, but like we definitely both jotted down a top 3 favorite songs from this trilogy of games. And why don't you go first, Trey?
Um, well, the main one I want to figure is a rendition of, as you rightfully would point, the song is called Heart of Fire in this game, but it's 90% Can't Wait Till Night.
Mm-hmm.
From Aria Sorrow specifically, just because when that hits, when you fight Julius towards the end of the game, it's like holy shit, like.
Yeah.
And also was, I know that wasn't the first time that they've referenced like a song from Haunted Castle, obviously, but
I believe. Well, see, this is maybe it may not be the first time, but like Portrait of Ruin does have a Cross Your Heart, I think.
hmm,
So I don't, but that's obviously later. So
I think if I remember correctly, and I'm only going on YouTube song compilations on this, so this could be correct or this could be wildly inaccurate. There is a version of Cross Your Hearts in the code of Rondo of Blood, but obviously it never got used.
right,
And then it does get used in Dracula X Chronicles, specifically that version, because obviously it's not in, you know,
right.
not
Um,
in coincidentally the game Dracula X, which is also somehow on this collection.
we will, yeah, somehow we will talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, my favorite game, my favorite, well, it is my favorite game, but my favorite song from all 3 of these games is Inner Quarters from Aria, because it's this beautifully, God, it's just never left my head, like ever since I heard it. It's just one of those perfect concoctions of a song. It's this beautiful looping melody that's almost kind of hypnotic. It's slow. It's just the right pace for me. I like things that are mid tempo or slower, and it gives you this, like, especially the area too. It's just awesome. Like it's the part with the killer maids, right? What they say the weird
Uh-huh.
shit to you. I really enjoy that area, and that song really just punctuates it. That's where I farmed for a succubus soul, by the way, was there just so I could listen to it
Mm-hmm.
while I did it. Anyway, but man, Inner Quarters, yeah. I just, to me that's unbeatable. I don't know how you feel about that, but I
Is a there is no arguing about like the songs on Aria for me. I don't think there's a single bad one on the soundtrack.
there isn't.
It's there like it's so impressive that like because even a couple of the songs in Circle, like I like them, but I never like. But although I say that, and I think you and me both have like a couple of songs from Circle that we're just like, oh, that's a great version of that song.
Yes, but that, speaking of which, that's probably, if it wasn't for Inner Quarters, my favorite song from Circle for sure is indeed Clockwork Mansion. Most people will say Clockwork Mansion is from Super Castlevania 4, and it is. In my mind, it's from Circle of the Moon. One, because Circle of the Moon's a better game, because Super Castlevania 4 is like all right. It's a better version in Circle than it is Super Castlevania 4. And like thematically, I feel like it belongs to that game. Yes, it originates somewhere else. And that's what we were talking about earlier with the just how Frankenstein and excellent the Circle soundtrack is in general. Um, that's really one of the big reasons is Clockwork Mansion. Man, like, look, the Super Nintendo did a very, like, I mean, they really played to their, like, that system's specific strengths as far as audio goes. I'm not saying the version in that game sucks or anything. I just, when I think of that game, when I think of that song, I think Circle of the Moon. I do not think Super Castlevania 4. So
I feel the same way when it comes to well, not necessarily with one of the ones I picked with Aquarius, because I kind of like, I believe there's a version of that the of Aquarius in Castlevania the Adventure Rebirth that I like a little bit better,
hmm.
but but the version of Aquarius is in that game, feel like it hits at the right moment. That's the other thing that I love about Castlevania music in general, is when they do it right and it hits the right exact moments
Mm-hmm.
when you realize, okay, you're in this new space. This is a new thing. Uh, the version of Vampire Killer that's in Circle,
Yeah.
like it hits exactly at the time it needs to hit.
Yeah. But speaking of which, again, that's the way I feel about the third one I picked, Fate to Despair. This is actually an original song for Circle, one of the few. And that's how I feel about that song. It hits. When you get there, it is like, yo, right? Like it is the perfect song for the perfect moment. Like in my opinion, and see now I even forget where it plays. Is it a sewer? I forget. It doesn't even matter.
It might be the
It
blood
just
sewer, yeah.
okay, yeah. So like when you get there, man, it's like a boom. The only other way I feel the biggest like impact thing for me besides that is the only other one bigger that I can think of for me is my favorite Castlevania song in my favorite Castlevania game is Dracula's Tears from Dawn of Sorrow. That's the only other time I feel like something hits me like that, like yo, right? Like that's how I feel about Fate to Despair. That's why I picked it. Besides the fact that it's a great song, but
And also, yeah, it just fantastic work. Yeah,
mhm.
that's another thing. Circle's soundtrack in general, just also very, very good, very, very nice. Random selections. You got like songs from Bloodlines in there, which
Yes,
at that time especially, like I feel like finally modern perception of like how good Bloodlines is kind of starting to change, and rightfully so. It's a great game, great
played.
music, a lot of.
I'm sorry, I played Bloodlines for the first time in 1998 on my Sega Nomad that I got from Toys R Us when they were clearing them out for $50. Remember, I don't know if you were of the age to remember how expensive a Nomad was, but it was fucking up there. And
I wanted one so bad, but by the time that I would have been like completely interested in it, I was like, okay, realistically,
But for
probably
me, I
wasn't good
never
enough.
really had a Genesis. All my friends did, so I played all the Genesis games. At other people's places, they never had Castlevania Bloodlines, so I never played that shit. So when I got a Nomad and Sega Genesis games were still plentiful and cheap at that time, I would go to Toys R Us all the time and get just out of the bargain bins and whatever. I found so many great Genesis games to play. One of them was Bloodlines, and man, I tell you what, I had a great time back then. But yeah, and so like those songs really burned themselves into my memory. So when they use them in other games, oof, it always has a special place in my heart. But you have one more from Circle that you really like.
Oh yeah. Uh, I mean, from the opening song, like "Awake," when it starts in "Circle the Moon," I feel like I've been again making like weird comparisons to the other games of the series, but I've always been the type of person that, especially going playing these Castlevania games for the first time, or for one of the newer, like going back and playing Bloodlines again or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't set the tone on that first song,
Gotta do it.
uh, I mean, fortunately, they almost never had that problem.
Mm-hmm.
That they like that. Awake is really good. Arya's opening, Ruined Castle Corridor, also great. Like sets the tone immediately. Also, let's be real here. When you go from that last song, like the last ending of like Harmony, and then you go to Arya and Ruined Castle Corridor, and you're like, wow, this actually sounds listenable. This is amazing. like you almost inflate it a little bit more than you would have before, but even then, it's like, no, that's a great song.
It
That
feels like
works
an
perfect.
oasis after what you just had to slog through. I mean, it's just
Right.
we both played through all three of these games like completely, so it's just like we pretty much had the same experience. Like you more so because you're playing through these like for the first time, but even for
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm usually forgetful of a lot of like certain elements and stuff, so it kind of feels new to. It felt pretty new to me too, especially Arya. But I, yeah, you were absolutely right. It is a good one. Usually, I'm not much for opening songs. One of my favorite Castlevania songs is Yuzo Koshiro's "Invitation of a Crazy Moon" from Portrait. So I do like some openers, right? But "Awake" is a really good one.
Yes, and just in general, that's to me. I think you bring this up really, really well M2 themselves. I mean, you have like the little music player dongle that's that's in this package, in the Advance Collection package, that you can go through any of the games, play each song, and they do give a very, very nice toggle for high quality, and they managed to turn something that's, let's just be real, the Game Boy Advance sound chip, not great.
No,
I don't know. They never. I don't know what it is. They just never figured it out. It actually
good
felt
samples,
like
good sampling like ability, but very, very muddy. If for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, they're just very distorted and muddy.
Pretty much, yep. But they definitely it's definitely noticeable in Circle and in Aria. Honestly, I didn't notice a difference in harmony, but that's for obvious reasons.
Well, you can't polish that turd, man. Like,
yes, exactly. I think I literally turned on and off high quality, and I was just like, wow, that sounds exactly the same.
I never turned it off, so I didn't want to brave.
Oh yeah, it genuinely didn't. I didn't notice the difference there, but I definitely could dinking around with the other two. So
man, it's weird about Aria because it's so uniformly excellent. It's almost hard to like criticize or even talk about, like in my opinion, because it's like it does everything correct. Like everything you want from this type of game, it's in Aria of Sorrow, and then the sequel somehow like does even better. Like I said, it's my favorite Castlevania game, but that's another discussion. But Aria of Sorrow is so airtight and great. I mean, don't you feel that way too? It's like it's almost, what can you say, right?
I mean, for real, like the design, the castle design is very, very good. It seemed to like we can argue that that one of the very few flaws I would give something like Circle is that for a Game Boy Advance title, you may not want it to have like so much reliance on like vertical stuff for the type of screen and the type of thing that is. Whereas I feel like Aria does a much better job of balancing its castle design, not necessarily to rely on that, but also it just looks like every area in there just looks like really pretty, really interesting to explore.
Speaking of which, real quick, did you, I mean, okay, I know you didn't play these originally, but I always felt like the "it's so dark" like complaints about Circle of the Moon were just bullshit. It's a Game Boy Advance, man. You can't see anything anyway. I get it. It has a dark color palette. I understand. Okay? But you're still going to have to look at it under a goddamn light. You can't see any Game Boy Advance game. What do you, I mean, look, whatever, man.
As an owner of the Game Boy Color version of Perfect Dark, I would have been very, very, very used to, I'm going to need one of those damn magnifiers with the little lamp and all that to
you know
play.
what I had?
I'm very used to it.
You know what I had on my brick Game Boy? Like the one you slide on the screen, where it's like a little square and it's like lit all around.
Oh, that's the one I'm thinking of. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I had. Yeah, I had that shit.
Got a lot of use during road trips.
Yeah,
while I was desperate to play Pokemon.
I used to use them at the ballpark on the way back from I remember bringing the Game Boy to Padres games a lot. Can you blame me? Because they were bad, but yeah, man, I just never really understood that complaint. When I originally played the trilogy back in the day, Circle was my favorite. Coming out of this compilation, I'm sorry, it's Aria. Like, as we've been talking about, I don't know what I was thinking before, and it's not because I think less of Circle. It's because I think that much more of Aria. Aria has been elevated. Circle is exactly as great as I remember it being. That's just how good Aria of Sorrow is.
Aria gets everything balanced. Like the very few issues that I would have with like a Circle of the Moon, I did feel like some of the boss fights at the end, as I said, were kind of tedious. I never felt that way in Aria, but I never felt like that it was too easy either. It actually felt like a healthy challenge.
Yes.
Like the chaos fight, the very end of the game feels like a healthy challenge that once you know what you're supposed to do, it doesn't feel like it's taking an absurd amount of time to do it, but you feel, and it feels like you're being rewarded for like, oh, okay, so I see how he's attacking and I see what these things do. Like it feels like a boss fight should feel.
And it nails it. You're absolutely right. It's really great. So the Belmonts have big dicks, right? We have decided this. I mean, I'm sorry to just bring this up out of the blue, but like they're packing, right? I mean, that Belmont family, they're passing down not just that whip.
Look,
they're passing down something else too.
I mean, Julius in general, like the classic big dick energy cliche is basically what Julius Belmont is, because he's like a 60-year-old guy. He's just coming through like, yep, I know you don't know this, but we fucked up Dracula real bad in '99, and I'm gonna fuck him up again.
Look, you don't spend from 1999 to like 2035 or whatever inside of a vortex in time or something. You know, like without having a big dick. I mean, you don't really survive a place like that.
Yeah,
I mean, wasn't Yoko there too? Maybe not. But I'm just saying. I mean, I'm not insinuating, but I am saying.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, and I know you've brought I know that just to kind of somewhat like kind of close on this in general, although I do like other aspects of how like I like how Arya does the soul system stuff. I feel like it's a little bit clearer than the card system at times, or at least it feels like it's more fun to actually get them.
It's like fancy equipment because it's like more like equipables versus like this is the card thing is like more like here is a thing you can do versus like it's a lot more variety. So yes, I agree.
But more specifically to this, I was just blown away by the fact that like we were talking about the previous two games where the stories at best were bare bones, whereas Arya, I appreciate that they really tried to. First off, I really appreciate anytime when a big franchise goes, okay, here's a lot of stuff that did happen, but you're not going to see it. You just have to know it happened.
Yep.
Which is very, very good for that, for what they're trying to do, especially the whole idea of like there was a big thing that happened in 1999. We killed Dracula then, and now it's the distant future, the year 2000 XX. I appreciate the braveness to do that because normally, I mean, we joke, but the Castlevania stories in general, it's not like they were working very hard to make like a deep, engaging narrative most times. It's just like, hey, you're a vampire killer and you and your buddy, y'all gonna kill Dracula today, and then your buddy kind of doesn't trust you, and then you gotta kill him, but you don't really kill him because if you did, you get the bad ending. But if you get the good ending, you won't kill him, but you will kill Dracula.
Arya does have actually a very engaging. I can't really say that about the other two, but that's not really something I need from them. Arya, sure. I actually really do enjoy those characters in the story, and I think that's why they brought him back. Not just the bridge like between like Game Boy Advance and DS. I really just feel like Iga probably wanted another crack at that. I don't know if he planned it that way from the beginning, but if he did, I wouldn't be surprised because it really lended itself to another game.
Yeah, that's one thing where it's like I genuinely liked any scene where I can't remember the name, but the guy, the shopkeeper, we'll just call him the shopkeeper. I always liked going back to him because the shopkeeper would always like have some like clever quip, and he would really seem like a fish out of water in a lot of the situations. He was real cheery for a guy that's supplying weapons to a guy that's is trying to prevent the terror, a massive vampire takeover of the earth. He's just like, yep. Oh, here you go. Here's a giant sword. Just pay me 2,000. I always found it really weird that it's 2,000 gold but it's a dollar sign, so it's $2,000, but it's
2,000 golden
gold.
dollars.
Yes.
Like, what is it that has double dollars? Is it Trigun or something, right? Like, I feel like it's like that.
Yeah, something like that.
So Juiced has the smallest Belmont dick, right? Like, definitely, for
I
sure.
mean, but let's be real, he's also the one that got the most action.
Oh man, you're right. He was man. I bet that girl in bed was like, I bet she was like, oh, just between you and me, you're bigger than him. Just to don't tell him, but like, I just want you to know that.
I mean, if Haunted Castle was canon, Simon Belmont is practically like the Castlevania equivalent of the guy that gets like that loses his virginity on his wedding day, and he didn't even get that. His
No, man, he had to go whoop Dracula's ass for the first.
I mean, it happened. Obviously, he's got kids, but like it didn't happen immediately by any means.
All right, so just covering up some odds and ends real quick. Also on this collection, for some reason, as we already mentioned, is Castlevania Dracula X for SNES. I have no idea why this is here. I don't know why it wasn't on the 2019 Castlevania collection, maybe, or I don't understand what they did here. Like, why is this here?
That's such a strange thing, too, because you'd also think, I know that in recent memory, there's been like quite a few of these compilations where they will be very, very nice to whomever got it and be like, oh yeah, we're going to put another one of these games on there. I mean, you would bring it up with them to themselves, like that at least at this point doesn't like some like the Tiger Heli collection that you bring up. Isn't there like random DLC that they
yeah, there's DLC
there
of like of Toil Plan's non-shmups. There's Guardian as DLC, and then if you just buy Kyokyu Tiger Heli, you will get a completely separate download of Teki Paki, which is like a random like a early 90s like Falling Blocks puzzle game, also by Toa Plan. So they're just throwing in these other games just to make the package bigger. But I just, man, it's weird, right? Because look, I like that it's here. I like Castlevania Dracula X. I hate when people talk shit about this game. I think it is pretty good. I'm not saying it's perfect. Dracula is really annoying. I don't know if you saw me videos about it, but it's really stupid. But honestly, like, I like that game. So I'm glad that it's here, and I wanted it to be on the previous collection of just all the other Castlevania games, but it wasn't.
It kind of it definitely should have been, but I also wonder if that's like just general limitations of like one thing that sets M2 apart from nearly everybody else in the field is that you don't get the sense that they're just, okay, we're going to just dump a ROM file in an emulator and call it a day. And then
it's better than emulation. M2 is always better than the real thing.
Look at their Sega Ages stuff.
Oh my god, man!
They had so much stuff to like a random like
playing like Outrun and like Virtua Racing at like 60 frames a second is insane. Like that's so cool that they do stuff like that.
Or like even just like the 50th release of like Sonic the Hedgehog, but they like add like extra stuff, or like, you know, or here's like the I almost wanted to say the Play Choice 10 version, but I know that's the NES one. The like the Mega Play or whatever, the little arcade version of like Sonic the Hedgehog that there's like, oh yeah, it's just in there. We're just putting it in there, and we redid everything, and it looks good and plays good, and all that stuff. They always seem to go the extra mile, so I almost just feel like it could just easily have been like, okay, we're working on this because obviously we're doing this collection. But we don't have time to put it in this version. And also, it's not like Konami doesn't... I'm sure Konami, after a certain point, is just like, oh, you have that one? Yeah, just put it in there.
I'm glad that it's here, though. It's a nice little freebie. I did play through it. Oh, boy. I think you should sometime, actually. It is... I think you'll... I mean, whether you beat it or not, you should definitely give it a good play, especially... since you are a fan of Rondo as it is, you will appreciate the differences. The SNES kind of works his ass off. So
the music's still very good. Like,
it's
that's
great.
The other thing.
It's so good. Real quick, just some things before we get out of here. Castlevania DS collection, maybe that's the
Yes,
logical step on this. I mean, obviously we
I,
want that, but how realistic do you think that is nowadays?
knowing how M2 does their stuff, I doubt that there's like I just feel like it would be very feasible. But I also realize that they would have to have a solution for Dawn of Sorrow, especially using a lot of like the tablet touch control type
Oh,
stuff.
we can get around that. Like, I feel
Oh,
like I thought
very
about the
true.
same
Yeah.
thing, obviously, and trust me, I thought that was really fun drawing weird little pentagrams and stuff to lock up the bosses. We can fudge that. I mean, it's not essential
Yeah.
that we like, you know what I mean? Unless they really want to like take the Switch version and like make you Joy-Con that shit or something. But he does. It's weird because he does like the anime ass intro of Dawn of Sorrow. Like Soma does do one of them things. I thought that was so cool at the time. Anyway, I think that can be skipped, but other dual screen functionality can maybe just be incorporated. I don't know if you ever played like Mega Man Zero ZX Collection. Obviously, the two ZX games are on DS. So I'm like, how are they going to handle it? They did it just fine. It works, right?
Yeah, I
So
think a lot of that stuff, if it doesn't involve like, if the game isn't explicitly based on like tablet support or like the using the old stylus or whatever, it seems like it is extremely. It can easily be done. I would think, even, like, and
easy.
even it, but at the same time, I had like an unfortunate realization when you said Castlevania DS collection. I thought, let me let you say what you feel first because it's kind of funny because we of course we play around with like the DS anagram. No, you know the word I'm thinking
Acronym?
of.
Oh, like the
Acronym. That's
like
it.
Dawn of Sorrow, like DS. Yeah, okay.
So I feel like I was going to call it Castlevania Dawn of Sadness collection because then like after Order of Ecclesia, it's just like, oh, you're gonna get real. If you find out what happens after Order of Ecclesia, you're just gonna get really sad. You're just gonna be like, okay,
It's yeah, you are going to get sad because it's like it just happened all of a sudden. Like Ecclesia happened, and there was no signs of it slowing down. Why would I think it would just stop cold, right? And it did, and it was just like, okay, well then what happened, right? Um, but yeah, I love when obviously DS and Nintendo DS stands for dual screen. I would love if they called it the Castlevania Dual Screen Collection. That would just be, I mean, because then honestly, okay, I said that as a joke, but honestly, that would be a good way to get it onto other systems without like because you can't call it the Game Boy Advance Collection. They had to call it Castlevania Advance Collection so we can get on other systems because you can't call it Game Boy Advance because Nintendo. Same thing with DS. If they called it Dual Screen Collection, now I'm
oh
I'm like
yeah,
talking myself into this now. Like
or even just like dual collection. I don't know, but then again, that might imply that there's only two games there, but it's gotta
yeah.
be three. Gotta have
Um,
three of them.
Gotta have three. I think obviously the thing we want the most is Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth. Obviously, that was developed by M2
Yes.
back in the day for WiiWare. There was three Rebirth games. There was a Gradius one and a Contra one. They're all excellent, but for the purposes of this discussion, yeah, I really wish those could see the light of day. M2 has gone on record saying, "Yeah, I kind of wish we could too," meaning that it's Konami's call.
Yeah, and I just have a hard time believing that they wouldn't see some of what the financial benefit of just doing that again would be. Like these collections in particular, we obviously don't know like hard sales figures, and I guess we'll probably never really know. But like when Advanced Collection came out, it's like relatively high up on the eShop when that happens. It's
Oh
like
yeah,
these releases do get like significant amounts of like some form of like sales or traffic or whatever, and
they
I can't
chart and people
imagine.
care. Yep. So
I don't know if I would say I don't know if the same would be true for these like rebirth titles, but if you told someone, "Hey, here is a new to them Castlevania, Contra, and Gradius," and we're putting it in a package, I don't see how that doesn't at least draw some attention, even if it's like it's not
how
gonna
does that go wrong? I mean, people are
Like,
going to buy that, even if it's just us, like schmucks who, like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, I really feel like I don't know why I call this schmucks, but like, even even if we do this, but like, yeah, I don't know.
like even if that got like half the attention of like I get that it probably wouldn't have like the exact like appeal just because it's like
I don't know about that because it's the three top Konami franchise, like Gradius, Contra, and Castlevania. If people know any three things from
yeah
Konami, it's those, right? So like, you're getting three
yeah
of those in one package. So I don't know. I feel like that's pretty attractive.
yeah I mean and again they're better showcases of those games than like let's be honest anything that they could do now with them.
Oh my god. Well, yeah, like would you even want them to make a Castlevania? I mean, like as currently
Yeah,
constructed, the robots who work there, like I mean, ugh. I mean, can you imagine?
you would have the first Castlevania game that has like I don't know glitches where you could fall through the floor, like or just like how would that why how could that even like I'm sure anybody that's listened at least has like somewhat of a cursory knowledge of Konami's last 2 or 3 years, and other than these collections, they've been bad.
Mm-hmm.
And not even just in like a bad I joke about the fact that I've played like Metal Gear Survive more than any human being should, but that's the high mark is that game. And when that's the high mark is a bad not really well liked spin-off of a game, and the low mark is like Contra Rogue Core. I have no faith in these people.
I forgot that game existed. I swear to God. I swear I forgot that existed.
Yeah, like the mere fact that that's your and I guess well I was going to say they were pretty good at making soccer games, but this past year has proven that that's not true anymore either. So like
yeah, we don't really I kind of feel like I don't want them to. If there was never another Castlevania, fine. I don't want whatever Konami is as currently constructed to honestly produce like a new one unless like they really got M2 to do the old school thing, and they don't have to remake another Castlevania game. But I don't know. I feel like something good could come out of that, but otherwise, I really don't want that to happen. One more thing before we get out of here. Iga, ever since he's left Konami, and I remember a couple of people have asked him since during the development of Bloodstain, they've asked him about the Julius 1999 thing, and he's refused to comment on it just because he said, like, you know, he's being diplomatic and saying, look, if they ever make a new Castlevania game at Konami, I don't want anything I say to influence like anybody else. Like if they were to make that game, I don't want to, you know what I mean, like influence that or speak on it or say, oh, this is the way I would have done it. So I get that, and that's fine, but I think that's also kind of strange, right? Like I really feel, I mean, obviously he planned all that shit out. I'm not saying he would have necessarily made a game about it, but who knows what would have happened after Ecclesia, right? If they would have went back to that 1999 thing. I wanted that game so bad, but it never happened. And I guess it'll never happen now, but
yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a bummer, although I do like the idea of there being this Castlevania that is in this big universe where in comparison to the other games where you basically are playing every single narrative step that you've seen in the Castlevania timeline. Mm-hmm. Whereas there's this big hole in the middle where you don't know what happened.
No. Yeah, and you only piece it together from
never
dialogue.
will know.
Yeah, that is cool. And well, I mean it's going to have to remain that way now, of course. But no, I get what you're saying. It is good to have a bit of mystery sometimes.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest with you. In comparison to, say, how Metal Gear Solid handled their weird like timeline jumps and everything like that, I don't think you would want that with like. I mean, I think Castlevania would have a more deft hand when it comes to that. You're not going to have. Iga would not have had like 10 hours of cutscenes explaining what happened in 1964.
And I don't even want that. I just kind of want to play. I like Julius and his big dick, and I just want to play a Julius game. God damn it, that's all.
I would not mind. I would not mind like a 10-hour mix of Can't wait till night. Heart of Fire, just playing in the background
10
over and over.
hours. Oh my god,
Yes,
10 hours. What is it, a YouTube video from like 2007 or something like that? The Star Wars, it's a trap for 10 hours or something. But
10 hours.
But the only other comp I have to this is East Origin from like, I don't know, this came out like 10 years ago or so. A lot of in East Book 1 and 2, there's a lot of references to events that happened like 700 years prior. East Origin, you get to play those events 700 years prior. And that's really fucking cool, right? But not every series can pull that off. And of course, Nihon Falcon is, you know, a nice tight unit. They can do something like that because they're not a husk of them former selves. But, you know, I don't trust Konami to do something like that today. Anyway, I think that's enough of our bullshit, maybe. Trey, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. And we went 2 hours without saying a word that I will go ahead and say. I'm having a heated gamer moment right now.
Oh, no.
And I was going to say, we went 2 hours without saying Metroid.
No. You know what? Real quick, actually, before we get out of here, if you're listening to this and you play like indie games that say that M word that we don't like, at least I don't like, buy Castlevania Advance Collection. It's everything it's everything you think you want from those other games, but you're actually going to get it here. Even Harmony of Dissonance, I would argue, is better than half those indie trash games that claim they're the M word. So maybe you should play this instead of those. Yes, I'm being admonishing at the end of my own podcast. Good night, everybody.